One for the books. I have two great guests standing by with me to help analyze today's sentencing hearing for her. I want to welcome them in now. Renowned psychotherapist, author, and the host of the podcast Talking Live, Dr. Robbie Ludwig is with us, and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Joe Tamburino is with us as well. Joe and Dr. Robbie, good morning to you both. So nice to see you. Oh, Taylor Schabusiness, I'm speechless watching that. I don't even know where to begin. Let's start with her and the person that she is, what we know about her. Dr. Robbie Ludwig, I'd like to begin with you on this, please. I know you haven't had the benefit of doing a doctor-patient evaluation with her, how we would love if you'd be able to do that. But just based on what you've been able to view, read, and assess with her situation, what kind of person are we dealing with here, please?
I was so struck during the interview how emotionally detached she was and really confused by her actions and motivation. So this is a woman who doesn't really understand herself, and there must have been something triggered or unleashed by using the drugs she was using. It's also really fascinating that her father was sentenced to prison for some kind of sexual assault. So I wonder if Taylor was sexually abused when she was a child, and deep down in there, she has a huge hate of men, and this gets triggered when she's not in her right mind. And then after the fact, really has no insight into her behavior or emotional affect either.
Oh, Dr. Robbie, thank you for pointing that out. I think a lot of people wondering the same thing, and we might get some answers from her today. Apparently, she's going to be speaking. That is the word. Let's brace ourselves. Joe Tamburino, what effect could that have on this sentencing if she speaks? Or could it be no effect because what she did was just so terrible?
I don't think it's going to have any effect, and I think the judge will see this, as I see this case, as a difference between a psychopath and a psychotic legally. A psychopath doesn't mean you are legally insane. You know what you're doing. You decide to do these evil acts. You're just a really bad person who wants to hurt people. Whereas a psychotic would be someone who could meet the legal definition of insanity because they don't know the nature of their acts or the consequences of those acts. So I think in this case, no matter what Ms. Schabusiness says, the judge is going to see through that, and she's going to get life in prison.
Right, Joe. I'm with you. And just a follow-up for you, please, Joe. In addition to being licensed in the state of Minnesota, where your practice is, you do criminal defense work in the private sector, you were also licensed in the state of Wisconsin, so you know the law there very well. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but no death penalty in Wisconsin, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so prosecutors, their hands were tied with this one. Perhaps they would have pursued it if they legally could have, but here we're looking at life as the max for Ms. Schabusiness. Dr. Robbie Ludwig, tell me, if you were able to evaluate Taylor Schabusiness, what would you want to know from her? Essentially, kind of walk us through how that would go, what you might ask her, please.
I was fascinated by her comment, when I love something so much, I end up killing it. And I would want to further that idea, because clearly she had a bond with her friend, yet that didn't protect him in any way. So I would want to know, what is it about loving somebody that triggers that murderous impulse? How does she understand her actions or the motivation behind her actions, looking at it in retrospect? Does she have an anger towards men? Does she feel out of control in some aspects of her life? Would she be in danger of killing again, given her inability to understand this very important aspect of her psyche? So I would want to explore those ideas a bit further.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, she is a fascinating defendant. She really is. I don't know what it is, if it's the look she gives, the things she says, just a combination of it all. Joe Tamburino, legally, talk to us, please, about the attorney's fight here today on her behalf. We know they presented the insanity defense, albeit unsuccessfully, before the jury, but perhaps they may be looking at taking an appeal. Tell me, what would be the smartest thing for Taylor Schabusiness's defense team to do today?
I think try to go into something like what the doctor mentioned about her past with her father relationship, what she's gone through. I agree with the doctor. I think somebody like this is such a damaged person. I would only suspect that abuse could have occurred when she was younger because she dissociates so much from her actions. And just the way she acts in court, she looks directly at the court TV camera. She smiles, she smirks, she makes gestures toward her dad when he was on the stand. But if you're the defense, what you're going to have to do is show that she too was a victim of many people throughout her life. And though the insanity defense didn't work with the jury, still the court should consider her mental state as a mitigating factor and give her less than life in prison.
Yeah, appreciate it, Joe. The way she behaves, you're right. It's bizarre. Some of her comments were just nothing short of stunning to those detectives after she did this murder, after she dismembered her lover's body, making comments to the police like, have fun finding all of the organs. I think that was one of the most heinous facts of this, is if it almost seemed like she was joking about it to police, which made me think, just as an outsider, somebody not privy to all the investigation details, that I thought perhaps they were going to be successful on the insanity defense. Dr. Robbie, the jury wasn't buying it. What are comments like that about have fun finding the organs around the house say to you as a psychologist?
Well, I mean, that would be the antisocial or psychopathic component of her personality. The joy in creating pain and the taunting of others in having to kind of discover the fullness of her crime. But I would also wonder, too, given the disconnection, if she also has some kind of depersonalization going on, where she's not really attached to her own body, where she sees and feels things like it's part of who she is. That it's almost like she's looking, she's detached from her emotions. They don't feel like hers. Maybe her thoughts don't feel like hers. Her body doesn't feel like her own. And she feels that maybe she's looking at herself almost like it's looking, like we're looking at her, like a movie. So I just think there are a lot of psychological components here. She's very damaged, but at the same time, she's very dangerous. So she is somebody that needs to be incarcerated in some way, shape, or form.
Well said, Dr. Robbie Ludwig. Joe Tamburino, stand by, please. We're going to hit a break. We're getting ready for Taylor Schabusiness to be sentenced. And when we come back after this, we're going to take a look at that unbelievable 911 call that was made from the House of Horrors case.